Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 2, Unit 4.4 Notes, Day 1. Today we're going to be talking about solving equations by factoring. Our learning target today is to be able to solve quadratic equations by factoring, if possible. So, the first thing to remember is that we need to get all terms to one side of the equation, and the leading coefficient must be 0. Okay, we want to get all terms on the equation, so we set it equal to 0. Okay, once we have it equal to 0, that's when we can solve. Okay, and after that, we're going to factor the polynomial and solve each variable factor. Okay, and that's going to be set equal to 0 too. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. So I have 9x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals negative x squared minus 3x. So I want to move everything to one side and have my leading coefficient be positive. So I need to look at the x squared because those are the leading coefficients. And which one's bigger? Good, the 9x squared is bigger. So I want to keep that there. So I'm going to add x squared to one side, and if I'm going to add the x squared to one side, I need to add the 3x as well. And the reason we do that is because we want one side equal to 0. Okay? So now we have 10x squared plus 4x plus 1 equal to 0. So what we do is we take this guy, and I'm going to bring it over here. I have 10x squared plus 4x plus 1, and I want to factor this. So I'm looking for numbers that multiply to get to 10. Yep, I'm sorry. Oh, I know what's wrong. I'm like, something is wrong with this, guys. Are you yelling at me because I can't add? It's not 4. 4 plus 3 is 7. I knew something looked weird. Okay, so numbers that multiply to get to 10 and then add to get to 7. If you don't know it off the top of your head, you should be writing down the factors. And the combination is 2 and 5. So we break all this down. The 10x squared plus 2x plus 5x plus 1. This is all stuff we've been doing, so this should be no brain buster to you. Factor out the 2x. 2x goes out front, and we're left with 5x plus 1. And then in the back, the only thing I can take out is a 1, and that's a positive 1. And we're left with 5x plus 1. So my two binomials are 5x plus 1 and 2x plus 1. Sorry, make sure that looks like a plus. So this, the 5x plus 1 and the 2x plus 1, that's my next step over here. I'm just going to bring that over here. So 5x plus 1, and remember the order of that does not matter, and that equals 0. So to find my zeros, what I do is everything with a variable. Okay, so with a variable, the 5x plus 1 has a variable, so I'm going to set that equal to 0. And the 2x plus 1 has a variable, so I'm going to set that equal to 0. And each one of these we solve. So I subtract 1 to both sides. We get 5x equals negative 1. I divide by 5. X equals negative 1/5. Okay, but that's not my only answer. I subtract 1 to both sides. I get 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2. and we get that x equals negative 1/2. So my answer is x equals negative 1/5 and negative 1/2. Those are the two answers to that quadratic equation. Okay. So number 2, same thing. I'm looking at my leading coefficients to see which one is smaller, because the one that's smaller is the one that we move. The one that's bigger stays. So I'm going to add the 3y squared and the 2y. Everything on the left side cancels, and I'm left with 0 equals 9y squared. The negative 2 and the positive 2 cancel, and I'm left with negative 25. So how do I break this down? It's not a binomial. Well, it is a binomial. I was about to say it's not a trinomial. Okay. So there's no GCF, and I can't split the middle terms. But what I can do is do the difference of two squares. Okay, both of these are perfect squares, and we have subtraction. So oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart. Okay. We take the square root of both numbers, so the square root of 9y squared is 3y. The square root of 25 is 5. And remember, 1's a plus and 1's a minus, and it doesn't matter which is which. And then everything with a y, or with a variable, is set equal to 0. And then we solve. Subtract 5 to both sides. 3y equals negative 5. Divide by 3. And we get y equals negative 5/3. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side. We're going to add 5 to both sides. The solving stuff, guys, should take you 30 seconds. Divide by 3. And we get y equals 5/3. Okay, so the way we would write our answer is y equals a negative 5/3 and a positive 5/3. Now there is another way to write that. Okay, and that would be saying y equals plus or minus 5/3. Those mean the exact same thing. Okay. So when I'm looking at this, that's my only squared. So everything needs to come to the left side. I'm going to add the 10w, and then I also need to add this 28, and it doesn't have a term over here to match it with. So when I write it, it's just plus 28. We'll make that look like an 8. Okay, and all that is set equal to 0. Now, remember, you should always check, is there a GCF? And there is, it's 2. And I'm left with w squared plus 4w plus 7 equals 0. So what I need to factor, that's what I bring over. I don't need to bring over the 2. I already factored the 2 out. So we're looking for numbers that multiply to get to 7 and add to get to 4. Right? Or see here, I'm doing the exact same thing as I did in number 1, and that's upsetting me, because I'm doing this too fast. I forgot that that's an 18, so this should be a 9. I really hope you're yelling at me over there, because that's the second time I've made the same mistake. Come on, Mr. Grice. Okay, thankfully I'm catching it. So numbers that multiply to get to 7 and add to get to 9, there's only one combination there, right? Oh, please, please, please tell me you're still yelling at me. Mr. Grice, 24 divided by 2 is not 7. Oh my gosh. I think I'm getting too far ahead of myself. I would restart this, but I'm 10 minutes in, so we're just going to plow through it. It's a Monday. Okay. I don't know what day of the week it is in video land that you're watching this. So, the factors of 14 are 1 and 14, 2 and 7. So the group that multiplies to 14 and adds to 9 are 2 and 7. So we're going to split that middle term. W squared plus 2W plus 7W plus 14. Okay, so I'm taking out the GCF. So I've got a W, and I'm left with W plus 2. And then we factored out a positive 7, and we're left with W plus 2. I know I did it right because these guys match. And then my two binomials are W plus 2 and then W plus 7. So this is what I need to bring over to the other side. Okay? Remember, the 2 is still here, but then we've got the W plus 2 and the W plus 7 equals 0. Okay? Everything with a variable, I set equal to 0. So W plus 2 equals 0. The W plus 7 equals 0, and then I solve. So why don't you guys pause the video and solve and tell me what the two answers are. Good luck. Okay, so you should have gotten your two answers of W equals -7 and W equals -2. Okay, notice how I wrote my final answers in increasing order. All right, number 4. Look at our leading coefficients, and I want to move the smaller one. So that means I need to add 8m squared to both sides. And I'm going to move that 5m as well. That way my right side equals 0. I get 81m squared. My 5's cancel, minus 49. So what do you think? There's no GCF. And yeah, those are both perfect squares. So that means we're going to factor this because it's a special product binomial. Okay, this is just like how number 2 was. So the square root of 81m squared is 9m. The square root of 49 is 7. And remember, one's a positive and one's a negative. Everything with a variable, we set equal to 0 because we're solving. Okay, so we subtract 7 to both sides. We get 9m equals -7. And I divide both sides by 9 to get m equals -7 over 9. Okay, I'm doing the same thing. Solve. Add 7, divide by 9. And then my final answer, -7 over 9 and a positive 7 over 9. All right, next one. Okay, so which one do we move? Yeah, we move the 2. So I'm going to subtract the 2k squared to both sides, and I'm going to subtract the 5k. Three minus 2 is 1k squared. The negative 2 minus 5 is a negative 7k, and then negative 15. So what we do is we take this, and that's what we're going to factor. So the k squared minus 7k minus 15. There's no GCF. So we multiply. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to get to a negative 15 and add to get to a negative 7. So 15 is 1 and 15, 3 and 5. 1 and 5 or 1 and 15 aren't going to work, and 3 and 5 that doesn't work either. So there's nothing we can do right now. So we can solve this, okay? But all we're learning right now is factoring. So this can't be solved by factoring. Don't worry, soon enough we're going to teach you how to solve it, but it can't be solved by factoring, which is what we're doing today. Okay. All right, and number 6. So we're looking at our leading coefficients, and I want to move the smaller one. So I'm going to subtract the 6n squared to both sides. I'm going to add 7n. And then we're going to subtract 15. So everything on the right side cancels. So we get 0. 8 minus 6 is 2n squared. Negative 4 plus 7 is a positive 3n. And negative 20 minus 15 is a negative 35. So, woo! I didn't screw that one up. At least not yet. So, I checked there's no GCF, so I'm going to take the 2n squared plus 3n minus 35 over here, and that's what we're going to factor. So I need numbers that multiply to get to a negative 70 and add to get to 3. All right, so I'm going to write down all the factors. We got 1 and 70, 2 and 35, 3 no, 4 no, 5 does. Is it 5? It's 5 and 14, right? We'll double check. So 70 divided by 5, yep, 14. And then 7 and 10. Yep, the only way to get there is 7 and 10, and one of those has to be negative. Good, the negative 7. Remember, it's got to work for both, and that's how we split it. The 2n squared minus 7n plus 10n minus 35. Why don't you guys factor this by itself? And then your 2 binomials that you end up with, that's going to be our next line over here. Okay? Good luck. Okay, so you should have gotten 2n minus 7 and n plus 5. And now what I'm going to do is set each one of those equal to 0. So we subtract 5 to both sides, we get n equals negative 5. Now I would add 7 to both sides, so 2n equals 7, and then I would divide that by 2. Okay? And then we're going to write those two in order from least to greatest. All right, and that's it. Now, your homework is 4.4 practice down here. If you notice, there are answers on the bottom to help you out. And if you have any questions, please come see Mr. Carranza or myself. So this is Mr. Grice signing off for Algebra 2 Unit 4.4 Notes, Day 1. Thanks for watching.